Hey, welcome back to the channel. So on today's video, we are going to talk about the biggest winners and losers of the warm-up series, warm-up games. We've had a hell of a lot of drama in these games, some close results, some big scores, some bans, some great tries, some good play, some bad play, all kinds of things. It's been really intriguing actually to watch the games building up to this year's World Cup. It's the first time they've really had a legitimate series before World Cup, and I think this is cemented this kind of approach to a World Cup for future ones. Yeah, it's been fantastic. Not without its cost, but yeah, let's get into who are the biggest winners, who are the biggest losers. On the winners side, you have to say that South Africa are one of the biggest winners, especially after that huge win over New Zealand recently. But the Rugby Championship went pretty well for them, because that kind of blends into the summer series. But they were pretty good in the Rugby Championship. But then they had a great couple of games in the warm-up series, and yeah, a couple of the players came good. They didn't really suffer any major injuries. Is out, but like putting Moody in the centre and things like that, which worked pretty well for them. Yeah, and Khaleesi coming back from injury as well. They had no big bans. And just the momentum they're taking into the World Cup is really great at the moment. So they have to be one of the biggest winners. France also had a really, I would say, satisfying build-up during the summer series. I think they had three games, I think it was. And they lost the game to Scotland with all of the youngsters in there. And I would say Scotland are another winner as well from this series. But yeah, they're looking pretty good. They have a similar kind of approach, I think, to South Africa in terms of like they've built a very deep squad. Maybe not on the level of South Africa, but like approaching that, I think. So they can bring in a lot of players. They had a big injury, which was not good on Tomac, and Dupont have played together a lot, you know, through their careers, even at the schoolboy level and under 20s level. So like they're gonna feel that, but they kind of shook it off a little bit, I think. And yeah, France definitely can be one of the winners from this this little period before the World Cup. Samoa, Tonga and Fiji, due to the rule changes, they've all got a lot of potential in this World Cup, but I think like Fiji has to take the prizes, building up to the World Cup in tip-top form. Of course, they had the big win against England at Twickenham, but honestly, that wasn't even their first choice team. To be honest, they were missing a couple of players, but I think they had a ban of one of the guys, but they're looking good, and they had some big wins over the Pacific Island like counterparts in the build-up, and I think, yeah, Fiji got to be going into the World Cup being very confident. So those would be my top three winners, I think. Samoa, honourable mention. Scotland, honourable mention. But those would be my three actually. South Africa, France and Fiji. So yeah, let's get on to the losers. Not to say losers, and just teams that they really could have done without the warm-up matches, to be honest. First off, it has to be Japan. Did they win a game? I don't think so. But they had bans, a couple of bans. The captain was banned, and also they had a couple of big losses as well. And after two great outings in the previous two World Cups, you do find it a little bit difficult to believe that they can repeat the success that they've had in the last two. So yeah, not a great little warm-up series for them. It's kind of showed their flaws a little bit. For whatever reason, they're not performing at the level that they once were. So yeah, not a great little start for them. Second, I would say Tonga really disappointed a little bit. They were lauded quite a lot because of the number of players that were coming back to play for the Tonga team. But yeah, they didn't really match that with the performances. They lost against I think Samoa and Fiji, and then didn't do much against the other teams that they played. So I think people were expecting a little bit more from them. So they're going to have to pick themselves up now as the World Cup starts next week, and really try and do something. So the second most disappointing team in the build-ups, I would say. And finally, I think it's pretty obvious who's the most kind of troubling build-up was, and that was England. The whole thing with the bans and the red cards. So England have a very tough match against Argentina, I think, who were quietly, steadily, and quietly confident about the first match up against England. But England just had a bit of a nightmare, to be honest with you. It couldn't have gone any worse, I don't think. Yeah, they could have really done without these matches. They had a good win, lucky win, or resourceful win, however you want to call it, against Wales in the second test that they played, and then they lost to Fiji, which was a historic result. So yeah, England really suffered, I think, because of these extra matches. They could have done with, I think, a little bit more of a break, and just gone into the World Cup fresh, and they would want to wipe these ones from the history books, but unfortunately they're there now. So yeah, honorable mentions, or side mentions. I didn't mention New Zealand. So New Zealand had a great rugby championship, and then they had that game against South Africa. Now, they were doing really well this year. I don't think they'd lost a match since the end of last year. But that big loss against South Africa, and kind of a bad habit slipping back into the game, has cast a lot of doubts on whether they are the team that we thought they were. Of course, they have the personnel, as always, to do it. But that was in terms of World Cup build-up, that was not a good look for them, and they would have far, I think, preferred it not to have had that game and not to have that big result, regardless of the cards and what have you. But yeah, so New Zealand, it's kind of a mixed bag for them. Great rugby championship, but then the big loss against South Africa, which is their last game going into the World Cup. So also mention for Wales, I think Gatland has handled his role quite well, in terms of that everyone had written Wales off, and still do, and rightly so. But he played and blooded so many young players out of necessity, I think, but he embraced the kind of process. And I think now the expectation is so low that even getting out of the group stage would be a major achievement for those players. So again, it's context. A lot of them, the coaches take a lot of criticism because expectations are too high. But I think Gatland will do all right, and the Wales team will do all right in terms of if they can get a couple of good performances, then yeah, they'll do pretty well. So in terms of managing expectations in the build-up to the World Cup, I think Gatland did very well. Yeah, and Scotland, though I didn't really mention, or only briefly, I think they have the potential to produce one or two big games and big upsets, but they're in that group with Ireland and South Africa, so it's going to be tough old World Cup for them, but I think maybe they can turn over Ireland particularly, but so Ireland have to really be on their guard, I think, against Scotland, but let's see how it goes. So yeah, those are my feelings after the World Cup warm-up games. Yeah, the cards were a little bit of a negative, but I think some great rugby played, and I certainly enjoyed watching the matches. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. If you made it this far, thank you very much, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.